Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Choose Inclusion. I am here today with my co-hosts as usual, UB and Mike. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for coming back, everybody.
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for checking in.
So we're excited about our guest today. Today we have Tanya DePass for our Black Voices Matter series. Tanya, also known as Cypher of Tear, is an American journalist, activist, and streamer. And she is the founder of the nonprofit organization I Need Diverse Games. I actually first met Tanya in the Twitter sphere, reading about all the great thought leadership she was putting out there around the lack of diversity in the gaming industry in particular, and the need to bring in more voices from underrepresented groups into the industry. And so I was really excited that she is graciously giving her time to us today. So Tanya, welcome to the podcast. Tanya, you're muted.
Good job, me, and I'm a professional. Hi, how are you?
So Tanya, I guess like the first question we always ask our guests is really just a check-in, because there's so much going on in the world, in the country, and in your industry, particularly with stuff happening today. So the question number one is just how are you doing? How are you holding up?
I'm exhausted in a lot of ways, physically, because it is so hot here in Chicago. It's hot and humid, and that kind of heat, I just kind of wilt like a flower. But also just emotionally exhausted because, just because Black Lives Matter has fallen off of people's Twitter handles and we're not seeing coverage of protests does not mean that it's not still happening. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, there's been no justice for their murders. And there are more and more people risking their lives to go protest and to show that injustice cannot stand, especially when it's the people that quote unquote supposed to serve and protect us are the ones perpetrating the violence. So there's an emotional weariness because, as expected, there was like this spike of, I'm really into it. I care about Black lives and I'm going to go protest. I'm going to donate. And now a lot of those same people they're exhausted, as they've said, of all of this. And it's like, well, congratulations. Welcome to Black Lives 24/7 of not being allowed to rest from this. I can't shut it off and then just pretend I'm not Black for the day. If you're someone who's out there marching and everything else and you're exhausted, imagine how Black people actually feel. So there's a weariness of spirit to go with that. Oh God, it's so hot. I just want to lay under a fan right now and not talk or move.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think this is that we're starting to see that wind down now, right? Like we've been talking about it on the podcast for weeks about what happens when the wind down happens and people start moving on. And I think we're hitting that place where we're starting to see, can we keep this momentum or is it going to fade away? Because this doesn't erase the experiences of Black people that have been experiencing this for hundreds of years. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about kind of your background in the gaming industry and how you ended up founding I Need Diverse Games.
So my history in games is accidental as someone in the industry. As a gamer, I've been playing games since I was a kid. Grew up with arcades, first edition Dungeons and Dragons, and I've always loved games. But as I got older, I realized those games did not love me back in the same way. And not that I expect an inanimate object to love me, but it gets tiresome when you finally have that light bulb moment of, I've been playing games for 10, 20 years, 30 years, and I still don't see people like me as a standard. So 2014, there was a lot going on in games. And I was just frustrated because I think the games we had kind of been hinted at E3 were starting to get more press and were coming out. And it was the same old BS of, brown-haired, blue-eyed white dude saves the woman, or she's been murdered, and that's his motivation for doing whatever he's doing in this game, or his kid's missing, or, the same bullshit that is the MO for most games. And I was just tired. I just hit that boiling point of, why is it so hard to have games with women in the lead, with Black protagonists, with Latinx protagonists, have mental health issues in a game and not have it be the reason a villain is the way they are, not using insanity as a metric in games like a lot of tabletop games used to and still do for some of them. And I was just mad. I was fired up before I had to go to my day job, threw out a bunch of tweets with I need diverse games as a hashtag, and right place, right time, lightning in a bottle, where a lot of people in the industry, a lot of friends, shout out to Mickey Kendall, Carnithia, who amplified some of those tweets, and she's always had a much bigger Twitter presence. And she shared a lot of those tweets and then also made a point of saying, hey, this is where this came from. A Black woman originated it. And it just got picked up by a lot of industry folks. And the conversation was in a place where, folks wanted to talk about it. It wasn't just, yeah, this trended and then it went away like after 24 hours, like a lot of Twitter things do. People started getting in touch and want to talk about it. And, it was good because it opened the door to conversations that need to happen anyway. And not in a cyclical way, not in a, okay, this year we're mad about diversity. Next year, we're going to make sure that we get enough queer characters, etc. This was more of a, people are fed up. This opened the floodgates. And clearly it's not going away. People want to talk about it. And we just kind of ran from there. And wound up with me being on a bunch of podcasts, doing panels, doing some articles, doing my own podcast. And then I was in the unfortunate position of needing a day job. And so I decided I'd see if this could be my day job and see where I was when unemployment ran out. And I've been going ever since.
Bravo. Kindred spirits so much, Tanya, is the reason why I started my nonprofit. But again, being the token blind person in very large Fortune 500, Fortune 600 companies is the reason why I started my nonprofit as well. To make that difference. And I love the model that you're creating, that you've created as a business, that is so instead of just advocacy, like you're actually promoting workforce development concepts within your nonprofit. Do you mind? Because I think it's super important for people to realize that, when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, we're talking about this, these concepts. Like I'm a big fan of financial and economic metrics and tactics, and how do you to bring to bring minority groups up. Like you have to provide a financial and economic platform for them to be able to lift their own voices up. And that's exactly what I'm hearing that your organization is doing. Can you talk a bit more about like all of that?
Yeah, so we're funded basically through Patreon. And once in a while, like for once a year, I would do kind of a, hey, we're struggling. We don't know if we're going to make it till the end of the year, and put out the hat, as it were. But we've been very fortunate in that our Patreon's kind of leveled out, and it's worked out where going to conventions in a normal year has either been subsidized or things like that. But the main thing we've been doing is getting people to the Game Developer Conference every year in San Francisco. Obviously not this year, but the GDC itself has a program where they'll give organizations 25 passes or pass codes, and those are valued at about $2,000 US. So they give us almost $50,000 worth of badges. And that's the biggest issue for a lot of people, is going things like this. I mean, I'm sure as all of us know, going to a professional conference, if your job doesn't pay for you, you're more than likely not going to go. When I worked in higher ed for 16 years, if they didn't pay for me to go, I didn't go to our annual conference. I didn't even go to our regional, because even though I didn't have to fly anywhere, it was still a lot. And then because this year is such an odd, weird year, and we still have patronage, so thank you everyone who supports us, but the money's not going out because there's nowhere to go. We've been able to subsidize colleagues conventions that have now gone online. Our friends at Game Developer Color, they're doing their event online later this month, so we're able to provide more funds than usual. We always support, but we're able to say, hey, we've got extra money here, please take it for your event. We're in talks right now to figure out a way to give small one-time grants to people, because a lot of times people, I feel, they get very angry about saying give people money, but at the end of the day, money is a resource. And a lot of people, if they just had the money to make their project, make their game, or be able to go, I know my rent and bills are paid and I can eat cheap for a couple months, then they can focus on creating, because the myth of the starving artist is just that, it's a myth. So what we're trying to do, especially since we have such a surplus right now, is to give back. We've been donating to like St. Jude, Black Girls Code, Trevor Project. And what we're trying to do now is, okay, we've got this pool of money. It's already July. It's clear no conventions are probably going to happen this year that we normally attend. So let's give back to people and say, here's $1,000, here's $1,500. Put it toward a project, but not just here's money. What does your project do to increase inclusion? So kind of taking a page out of how we review applications for the Game Developer Conference passes of your project has to amplify and uplift inclusion in our industry, be that tabletop, be that video games, not just here's a grant because you happen to be a Black developer. And I know someone may be listening go, well, that's weird. You're saying one thing and doing another. It's like, we want to give money to people that are doing the work and not just going, you made one thing, here it is, which could sound weird, and I'm probably not explaining it very well. We've never been in a position to give out grants, but we're trying to make it fair in that we are boosting marginalized developers, but also not just seen as you have extra money or using other people's money for this, but that's our mission, to help people. And if next year is a point at which we can start going to conventions again and doing events, then we'll help people get to those events. But the long and short of it is, give people money to do stuff, because that is the biggest barrier. And, international friends, not that I would advise anyone to come to the US now, but, when we can travel again, international friends have double, triple, quadruple the cost to come to these same things that I can go to for a few hundred, maybe a couple $1,000s. So the TLDR is, we want to give people access through giving them funds or sponsoring things or sponsoring tickets and doing things so there's access versus just, here's a code camp, here's a laptop, and then we never talk to you again.
Yeah, it's the long-term sustainability of it, because I think there is a future for people in this world, in this business. What have been the effects first of COVID, and then now Black Lives Matter in this world? Because I imagine it might be a little different than people are thinking on the COVID side specifically. And what are the conversations happening? Like how are gamers handling all of this?
Well, so for gamers, I think gamers in general, depending on what you do for gaming, if you're someone that's at home anyway and playing on PS4, Xbox with your friends, it's probably not much different. You log into work if you've still got a job, hopefully, and then instead of a commute, you've got a couple extra hours to play with your friends. Or if you're a tabletop gamer, you've had to adjust and do things remotely through Zoom, through Roll20, through D&D Beyond, through all these tools that exist. But we had options previously. Now it's like, well, I can't sit right next to my buddy at a table, but I can hop on a Zoom call and we can still roll dice. Overall, I think it's been good. A lot more people are using Twitch. A lot more people are streaming and discovering ways in which they can also kind of have community without the ability to go and sit with someone or go to a convention or go to dinner or call up someone and say, hey, come over, let's play a new game. And in terms of Black Lives Matter, there's been a lot of anger. There's been a lot of righteous anger. There's still protesting. There's still people out in the streets. There's still people demanding justice for the people that have been murdered by police. But as expected, when I was talking about during my intro, the fervor has died down. The anger of the people that have the privilege to not be in fear of police, that don't have to worry about, if I go to the store and I have to go to the store as a Black person in a mask, is someone going to assume the worst and call the cops on me? Or if I'm walking down the street, is some dude with a Confederate flag going to roll up on me just trying to go from point A to point B because I have no choice but to leave my house? Black Lives Matter has been, to me, maligned as a terrorist group, and that is absolutely untrue. And the fact is, a lot of people get very angry when they hear Black Lives Matter because they add in either only Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter more when neither of those have been said or added or true. We're just simply saying Black Lives Matter because they've not mattered in the past. You know, this country has a history of slavery, and people want to act like slavery is just so long ago. No, there are people alive that are descendants of slaves. So this isn't ancient history that people want to talk about. And Black Lives Matter, I think, you know, it's always been an incredible movement. It's always been calling for accountability and showing that we matter too. But I think we finally hit that reckoning point where even if you don't believe in what Black Lives Matter does, and I'm saying this not as a Black person because I firmly believe in it and have given and supported since day one, it's the people that will listen to Fox News and think that BLM is a terrorist organization, or their immediate response is, well, what about Black on Black crime? Well, we're not talking about Black on Black crime, and also there's not enough Black people to have all the Black on Black crime you keep throwing out here as a statistic. There are literally less of us than white people. And yet this weird fear and terror and anger pervades. And, you know, and even when Bungie, they make Destiny 2, they very intentionally had 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence to show the amount of time that it took for George Floyd to die. And I thought it was a little weird, but as a company, they didn't have to do that. They could have just shown the new content that's coming in a couple months and gone about their business. But I need to see that continue from companies where they say Black Lives Matter and they put out their statement, but then their actions don't follow. And this is especially true with gaming companies lately. So it's affected a lot of people, and you haven't been able to ignore it. But now we're seeing the ally fatigue, as I uncharitably call it, of haven't I done enough? I gave $50. Why are you still mad? And isn't the pandemic over? And why don't you care? Because one person got arrested. Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her home, minding her business, and she died. She was murdered, and the 3 cops involved are still, well, the cop involved is still, I think he got fired, but he murdered someone. He should do jail time. The 3 cops who killed George Floyd still have jobs, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and forgive me, but I'm blanking on the name of the gentleman that was shot while he was out for a jog. The family that murdered him is finally facing charges after how many months and pressure. You know, we are killed with impunity, and it's always, oh, well, they took a candy bar once when they were 5 years old, so it's totally fine that they were murdered. And it's such bullshit. Yeah. That our lives are worth so little to people that they will posthumously try to legitimize people's murders, you know?
Yeah. And it was Ahmed Aubrey and then yes. There's Elijah McClain here in Aurora in Colorado too. I mean, just like like a handful of examples of so many more. It's
over the last 10, 12 years. So
Tony, one of the questions I'm coming across, because now we're getting to that place where 3 weeks ago, there's so much performative stuff, just like what you were talking about with Bungie games, right? People putting out the BLM hashtag on their corporate accounts and all this stuff. I mean, but even today, you saw that you had told us about Twitch putting out a tweet about BLM. I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit about kind of what are some of the performative things you've seen, and how would you want companies to be doing things differently? Like, what do you really want them to be doing instead of what you're seeing them doing?
So in a video, well, a tweet that's now deleted, they shared a lot of prominent white streamers talking about Black Lives Matter, but not a lot of Black voices. And they did do a Black Lives Matter video, but it was here, read this, make sure that you're very poignantly saying Black Lives Matter. And it just felt very much like, look at these allies. Aren't you glad for these allies? And, there's so many Black streamers that have been having hard conversations at the risk. And I shouldn't even say the risk. Let me walk that back. There have been Black streamers who've been having these conversations about, I know that you watch my channel, you watch my stream, you come in, we have a good time, we play games. But at the end of the day, when I leave, when the camera's off, or I go about my regular day, still Black in this country. And, one of my friends, DJ Knight, former service, former Air Force, taught in the games industry, has made games, wonderful human being that I have the honor to call a friend. He's still a big dark-skinned Black dude when he walks out his door. The world doesn't care that everyone loves DJ Knight, but someone like him, someone like ex Mirror, my friend Misty Imperial, that have been having these really hard conversations with our audiences and just going, okay, breaking the fourth wall, if that's the thing we do here, we can't ignore this. We can't look at this. And then people going, well, I'm just here for entertainment. That's cool. That's you. That's your life. You can go be entertained elsewhere. Right now, we're having these conversations. And while I think what Bungie did was important, but if they don't do it again, if other companies don't do it again, then it does feel performative. Twitch put out a Black Lives Matter statement and a video and all this other stuff, but it's like Black Lives Matter, but Black Voices Matter, which is the hashtag for the series. It's not like there's a dearth of Black streamers they could have asked or had like a town hall or something, instead of basically promoting all of these white popular streamers. And there were only 2 Black streamers in the whole video, one of which I don't think even they didn't have a clip of them actually speaking. They were just in the video. So it just felt very white knighty. It felt very, here, allies. And, I'm sure you've seen me say this. I don't need an ally. I need an accomplice.
Mm-hmm.
I need someone to do the work. And that's what it feels like. It's like, look at all these people saying the right thing. Okay, cool. That's nice. But where the Black folks have been saying this longer and with a lot more behind it, because it's our lives on the line. When police try to do cutesy little things like give a Black kid ice cream, and you see this child screaming and running away because they're sure they're going to die. This is a child. So it's things like that where that performativeness and trying to be Officer Smiley and companies doing things. And I don't want to use tone deaf because I know that's an ableist term. I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase it. It's like it's unthinking, but it is indicative of there probably wasn't a single Black person in that room, or if there was, they couldn't speak up. Because most of the time, when you're the brown person, you're the Black person in the room, either you speak up and you're ignored, or every room and every head in the room turns to you like you are a speaker for your people. And that's too much pressure to put on any 1 or 2 individuals in a company, especially one the size of Twitch. you know?
Yeah, I love this. This conversation is it's awesome because it's a perspective we haven't had yet. But I think what I'm learning, I mean, the same things need to happen, right? Like
Yeah.
it's action, it's, to your point, accomplice. I mean, we've heard that word a few times now, and I love that. It's it's using the platforms that we have to have the conversations that we need to have. You know, I love what you said about, you know, if you're here just to be entertained, please go somewhere else right now. We need to have this conversation as a community of people who frankly have intense amounts of influence in the world right now. Like we need to have this conversation, and it's a conversation amongst the majority of people, I imagine, are younger. And you know, what better time to have that conversation?
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, it's incredible times.
Yeah, and thing is with Twitch, at least it's not always super young people. And
Yeah,
and I think that feeds into a lot of people assuming gamers are young, gamers are not aware. There's a lot of gamers like that are, because if you look at the stats, the average quote unquote gamer is more like us, not the 18 to
mm,
35-year-old white dude assumed to be in someone's basement, because older
sure.
people, 30s, 40s, with disposable income, that can buy a $500 game console versus the 18-year-old kid that has to run to mom and dad, you know?
Right. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Well, and also, I mean, that's why with the work you're doing with your nonprofit is great, because the socioeconomic differences that have, you know, are a huge factor in where we are today. That's exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And I love that, because you're trying to give everybody a chance. Everyone deserves a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, gender, whatever. Um, awesome. Well, Tanya, thank you. This was phenomenal. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with, leave us with?
Well, aside from what I said about Black Lives Matter not having words in front or behind it, is get away from the idea that diversity or inclusion means losing quality. Because so many people, their immediate comeback when you say we need to hire diversity, we need to think about inclusion, is, well, we need the best candidates. Yeah, you need the best candidates, but that still can be the Black dude who, you know, only has an associate's degree, but is self-taught coder and is running rings around your professional coder sitting in an office 10 hours a day. You know, it doesn't have, because that is reinforcing whiteness as assumed best. And that is
Right.
code for, and I'm sure all of us have seen it, especially in the tech sphere, when you're not a good fit means you're not like the bro that's in the main guy's fraternity that he promised a job to whenever he needed one, but you're really better at this job. Or you get hired for a lower position and wind up training the person that got the job you were actually qualified for.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Well
Yeah, that's
said.
incredibly powerful. Yeah, I love that you said that. And it brings to mind one quick thing, but I know we were going to end, but it was interesting. I was on a call this morning, and there's a company out in I think the Bay Area, but they're developing an algorithm that will, because there's in coding, there's the master and slave concept, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
they're
Twitter, they've all been dismantling that. It's big.
Yeah, so that just brought it to mind, because you're right. Words absolutely matter, even in a context like that.
Yeah, the
That
first time I put together a computer and read the instructions where it was like slave drive, I was like, what?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep. It's
Unbelievable. It's
insidious.
just it is, and it's embedded, and that's what we're trying to change. So thank you, Tanya, for all your work. Thank you for today. Thank you for trusting us. Really amazing conversation. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Nina. And you know, thank you everybody for continuing to listen. We're going to keep doing this, like we said, until things change, because you're right now, to Tanya's point, like people are sort of losing steam, but it's not time to do that. So we're not going to do that. So stick with us, chooseinclusion.com. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Welcome. Bye.
Thanks, Tanya. Thank you, guys.
Oh, you're so welcome.